Okay, so for you guys that don't know me, I'm Kathy, and I'm plain old Kathy. There is nothing fake about me. I say what's on my mind, and you can ask me anything, and you may get a crazy answer, and that's okay because that's just what I do. And but anyway, I thank you for joining me. My whole purpose for
you.
By the way, some of you guys already have a noise in your background. Who's on here? If you guys
give it a rest.
Would you guys all use it? Whoever said just give it a rest? Well, that's you. So would you go ahead and mute yourself if you're going to have noise in the background, because we're hearing that, and it makes you become the host. It automatically converts over. So if you're not participating right now, go ahead and mute. And probably that's Terry. Terry, can you mute, please?
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We're hearing everything that's happening, so don't have an argument with your husband right now. So,
yeah, no, we're doing scams.
Yeah, well, go ahead and mute yourself.
I don't know how.
You don't? Well, I don't know if you're on your computer or not, but if you're on your PC or your laptop, kind of go over to the bottom left-hand side and there's a mute sign. It looks like a microphone. If you're on your phone, then there'll be a place that looks like a microphone. Otherwise, you're going to have to leave the area and be at somewhere quieter. So anyway, hi guys. So I try to do these ever so often. Many people have done these over and over. I can't hardly teach you anything new. And so it's going to be a repeat and probably very boring. But I hope at some point in time you get some things answered, but it also gives you an opportunity to ask some of your own questions. And that's my purpose. So many of you know, or you should have received an email from me not long ago with just a invitation to do something on a private basis. I usually do my private things, not on Zoom, but on Google Meet. And if you don't know how to do that, again, when you get it, it's a little tiny place in here that says join now, and you can do that. But this is actually coming on from Zoom. And so I think Zoom is a great platform, and so we use it a lot when we have a lot more people. So anyway, this, as I said, is kind of just an introduction again to get you guys where you can ask some questions. But I'm going to go over 2 or 3 things to start off with. So I'm going to kind of focus my camera a little bit more down to the Wellness Pro, so you won't see me quite as much. But when I start running into questions where people, repeated questions, I know that there's some things that people are not understanding. And one of them, there is a plug in the back of your machine, and it looks like this. Well, that plug belongs, this power adapter that plugs into the wall belongs to this machine. Do not use your laptop plug into this machine. It will fry your machine because that's higher voltage. And if you see how teeny tiny this little wire is, that's how much power is going to this thing. We don't want a lot more power. So what I find out is most of the owners know this, but then they'll come along and a grandkid or somebody else will come on and they don't know where the power adapter is, and they'll plug their laptop into it. And this laptop, this computer, this Wellness Pro is not warranted for you putting a different power adapter in it. If you're ever not sure what belongs to this machine, the power adapter actually has the name Wellness Pro on the back that plugs into the wall. So keep that in mind, because I've had several people fry their machines, and when I'm training somebody, the first thing I ever say is don't plug this in anywhere else, but just know that that's something that you may not do it with somebody else that you either loan your machine to, or you even have maybe a grandkid or another person using it. So keep that in mind. So I'm just going to do a couple of things, and then we're going to open questions for about anything you want to ask. I'm going to show you a little bit of how I set my machine up. And that's why I'm kind of off the camera here, to just show you the Wellness Pro. So you have pretty much all used it now. This little 4-way plug, these two across from each other talk to each other. So you've got 2 wires and they're across from each other. Normally you'll put gray wires in the gray dots on each side of it. Okay. But therefore, if you take a plug and you put it in one and then the other side by side like that, I'll get right in front of it, side by side, it's not going to work. this creates a channel. And so the two wires that are going to talk to each other have to be across from each other. Now, so on both sides, normally I set my machine up with two wires on the left side and two wires on the right side. And then you can add wires as you need to, but I leave mine set up just like this, because rarely do you ever need 6 or 8 wires, but you may. And especially you people that are working with a lot of athletes, then you may need more plugs and more places. What you're going to do then is you're going to come back and add 2 more plugs, 2 more wires to this. And when you have 4 wires in one side, and especially if you have 4 wires in the other side as well, so therefore 8 wires, the intensity of this may not feel as strong as the other one did. So you don't have to have all of your 8 wires running. I typically leave mine just like this, but say for instance, if I want to treat a knee. So I usually will treat a knee with a little pad in little places. So some of you have heard me say this. I usually say little pads and little places. This is a little pad. A little place might be my elbow or my neck or elbow or my neck or my wrist or my ankle or maybe even my knee. So I put little pads in little places. By the way, many times if you're working with somebody very large on a knee, I'll put a big pad across the top of the knee or above and below the knee. So you don't have to keep to this rule, but I usually use a little pad in a little place and maximum of about 40% intensity. But say for instance, I wanted to treat both knees and then I want to put off the other side of the machine, I want to put 2 pads that go under the feet. So I might take 2 pads off of one side and I'm going to put these 2 under the feet. Okay. The reason is this plug in this little plug, this 4-way plug, the frequency is going to run pad to pad because you've got a channel. It's going to run this pad to this pad. Okay. This pad to this pad. And if this is under your foot and this one's under your foot, then it's going to go foot to foot. Well, where does it go when it's foot to foot? It's going to go up through the knees, up through the calves, the knees, the quads, the hamstrings, the back down to the other leg. So I usually like to treat pads under the feet and the knee itself. But if I'm treating 2 knees, that might be a time I would take 2 more wires and add them here. So I might put 2 wires to the left knee off this, 2 wires to the right knee off this. The other side of the machine, I might put 2 long pads. So now we're running pad to pad. Just because we're talking already, and I got ahead of myself, but we might run cylinders. And you probably know that these cylinders, you guys that bought them, you paid extra for them. The company used to include these. Now they don't. And the FDA had a recall on them. So you people that had them previously, good for you for keeping them, but they recalled and said, send them back. But most of you guys have ended up purchasing these. I am the only one that has them. And the reason is the magic, a lot of magic comes from these little things. Now the company did do the carbon rubber little round cylinders, but I don't believe they're as effective. And I really like these, but one thing if we might try to cover here is broadcasting. Broadcasting is being able to do some off-body work. We lay these beside your bed or beside your chair and let the frequencies run over you. You cannot do those with your carbon rubber pads. We'll get into broadcasting if we have time tonight. If not, you can email me anytime. But most of you have received on your training videos, there's some printouts at the bottom. If you haven't printed out so you got the training videos, down at the bottom, there's some attachments. The attachments are every word that's in that training video, those training videos. So you can turn around and print those off, and instead of watching it, you can read it. But also there's something in there about broadcasting. If you want to broadcast and do some off-body work, this is how you're going to do them. And that's one of the main reasons I started carrying these. And so I went out and bought about $10,000 worth of them for my people can have them. And you people are all my people, or you've been associated somewhere with me. And I bought the cylinders to be able to just support my people. And because I think they're so amazing. To me, they're the star of the show of this machine. So if you have cylinders in both hands like this, then it's running pad to pad or cylinder to cylinder again. So then it's going to run up through your arm, up through your upper part of your body and through your thalamus and your hypothalamus. So then you're running through your brain. This is how we treat headaches, is through your hands. Okay, we may put pads on the back of the neck too, but basically you want to have anything brain related, you want to have these in your hands. I would tell you anything on your upper part of your body, but say Parkinson's and MS and cerebral palsies and migraine headaches and strokes and all of those things, try to add the cylinders to your hands. Now, today, I don't know if she's on here or not, maybe not, but I had a phone call from one of the doctors and she's treating Bell's palsy. So we would put a pad on the face right here. Sorry, I'm having to change this up. And so we'd put a pad on the face right here. And this particular patient had, drooping in the mouth and couldn't control their mouth. So we put a pad in the middle of it and we put a pad right here. But if it would have been the eye, we might have put a pad here and a pad beside the eye. That nerve goes both directions. So, but what I do want to do is continue to put the cylinders in the hands. So the cylinders in the hands are the magic of anything above your waist. The pads under your feet are the magic of anything below your waist. Now you can treat a knee or you can treat your shoulder without adding the cylinders or the pads under the feet. But if you've got the machine available, please do both, because think of this, if you have a bad knee, well, you can treat the knee and then you've got two little pads and the pads are going to talk to each other, right? Across through that knee. And so it's going to go right through the knee. So it's going pad to pad, but it's not going through your feet and back up. If you got it under your feet also, now you're traveling all those neural pathways, but you're also treating the muscles and the tendons up to that knee. And by the way, then you're treating the opposite hip and you've accommodated because you walked on the knee so long and now the other knee's hurting you too. Now you're treating it all of them. So I'm going to stop there with just a question about that, what we've said so far. Questions on that? Anybody? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
Kathy, I
yeah.
have a question.
Okay.
I hit my head like a week ago and I used one of those circle pads like on my forehead where I hit it. Is that okay?
Yeah. So
where would you put the other pad then? Like
I'm
right
always
by
going to kind of put them, you always have to put two on the same body. First of all, that means you're not going to put it on your neighbor at the same time. If you ever do that, some of you guys, even you probably, Renee, when we did that, you hold hands and it can make it go through both of you. But basically you can put it on your face. I would just take two pads and kind of put it in the same area, just side by side. If you had a problem down into your, like for instance, if you had a concussion or something, I would certainly turn around and treat the back of your neck, right at the bottom of your brainstem down here. But if you didn't, then I would put pads just here. And I do shingles a lot like that. So I run into quite a few people that have shingles that grow into their hair. You've probably seen that a lot. And I've actually put pads. I have to put more gel. So I see Melanie's on here. She treats horses, so she knows about using more either water or using more ultrasound gel. But when you got hair, then I will use a little bit more ultrasound gel and I'll put it right in there and it'll go through that hair. And sometimes people have shaved their heads or something, and I might even massage it over their head. Shingles are very, very painful when they're on the head, and I do that a lot. So you can do the same thing, Renee, and just put it up on a part of your head. When you use it on your face or your head, there's a little note in your spiral notebook that says keep it somewhere below probably 15%, 20% and below. When you are at 15% on this machine, you actually are hitting microcurrent. So we have the blue part of this machine that turns everything to microcurrent, but microcurrent is 1,000th of the amperage of the gold screen. So when you turn it down, 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 you're really hitting some of the microcurrent as well. And so we're typically using microcurrent on the face. So you can flip it to the blue screen and treat eyes or something facial, but most of the time when we're just doing something like I would do with my shingles, or you, Renee, if you want to put it right on a bump and you want to take the swelling out of it or the bruising out of it, then just turn it down to 15%. And on your quick start guide, you will see something that says facial issues and it will tell you that information. Other questions? So,
I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering, you were putting the wet pads under the feet instead of the gel.
Yeah.
I know when we used E-stim in the rehab center, we had the yellow sponges and we put those wet.
Mhm.
Is there anything about putting wet cloth on those cylinders and holding it? Because I have people fussing about the gel. That's
Yeah,
weird.
you
but-
can. You can do that. I mean, make it convenient for yourself. So a little, I don't put much gel when I put it in their hands. By the way, sweaty palms will take care of your hands too. Men have a worse problem because men have more resistance in their hands. They have more calluses and so forth. So I like to have that gel. Here's what I do is sometimes play with that yourself and see the difference. So you put it on with, you know, a wet cloth or something and then put it on without it. But yes, you can use a wet cloth with it, but to me, it's more trouble. I put a teeny tiny little bit of ultrasound gel. I'm talking about like a pea size almost, rub it between my hands, especially my fingers, and then I hold those and then it's not gooey. So whatever you do, you don't have to do gooey. Even under on your back and so forth, you don't have to put a lot. Remember on my training video, it says like toothpaste on a toothbrush down one pad. So I take the gel, I run it down one pad, and I just barely have it down there and I rub it together. But you can even use, instead of those, you could use a wet paper towel on your back too. What I find out is usually the paper towel's dry if you're treating somebody very long. Now, I don't like that gooey between the toes. I used to always use it. And today I actually used, I accidentally put some ultrasound gel on the pads to go under the feet, and I just threw a wet paper towel over the top of it. So whatever, but you guys that are treating horses and stuff, you may have seen us spray the horse down with water first and then put the gel, put the wet paper or put the gel with on the pad and put it on it as well. We like to do that because it really connects better. If you can spray the horse just a little bit, even if there's a water hose, squirt the horse down. But anyway, whatever, even your dogs and so forth that you use it on. But ultrasound gel just works. But I understand some people don't get into that gel, but take it easy on it. Don't do a lot. The only time I use a lot is when you see me start massaging these pads all over somebody, and then I'm going to have a lot of gel because otherwise I'm going to be adding gel. Today, I massaged this about 5 minutes on somebody, and I had to squirt the gel on it, a glob of it, 3 different times, and partly because his skin was so dry. But by the way, he did absolutely amazing. And he drove a long way to see me. And so it's kind of fun to see him get the results that he got. Other questions? Okay, so so my rule of thumb, now this is initial.
right.
You have to stick to.
Kath,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I delayed on the mute. I treated somebody today with, she said she didn't have sunburn, but her, under the brown tan, there was red. And at about 13%, she was like, it's prickly.
Yeah. So she's super sensitive to it. And Paula was there when I was recently showing, and I thought, yeah, Pam's on there too. So we were showing somebody recently, and at 10% with the cylinders in the hand, the man was crawling out from under them. So why does that happen? So remember, this is energy. Energy is all about where do you get it? And you've heard me say this a lot of times. You get energy from the sun. It's magnetism, right? Converts into your body to create energy. You get it from rushing water. That's hydroelectric power for you people that are engineers. That's rushing water. That means waterfalls and oceans and so forth. And then you get from grounding and earthing, walking barefoot in the soil. And then you get it from energetic foods that are what we call conductive foods, which carry more electricity or more conductivity, I should say. And so if somebody is if say somebody works, and this particular guy yesterday that I treated, he's out in the sun all the time. And I mean, I could touch him at 20% with that on his back, and it was way super strong. And so when you see somebody that's super sensitive to it, usually they're energetically strong. That's actually good. But you're going to, then they're going to be the kind of person that their watch will stop because, you know, they're wearing a watch and their, you know, frequencies do crazy things with them. But so when I talk about intensity, remember this has to do with the size of the person, the conductivity of the person, how electrically strong they are, and then what frequency you're using. And then if they have any nerve sensation damage of any kind, any neuropathy, or they've had a surgery on a knee and the nerve has been damaged some way, That affects it. But what we know too is age usually deteriorates our nerves some. So you start working with the little or the younger kids, like we do at high school finals or some of these rodeo kids, they're going to be real energetically strong. And when I tell you to put pads on somebody's neck at 30% intensity, that's kind of my go-to number. Well, let me tell you, most of them at 20 are jumping out, that's too strong for them. So I'm talking in generalities. Most of the time, I will put pads on the back, on the neck at 30% intensity. But my rule of thumb is little pads in little places, maximum 40%. That's maximum order. I usually don't go to 40, but that's about maximum. But if you end up going to 50, 60, 70, 80, it still works. You're not going to harm anybody, but they could be sore tomorrow. The magic of this machine has to do with your electrolytes. Okay, water, 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 water. So somebody that sends me a message, and I get them all the time, that says, oh my gosh, they were worse after I treated them. Well, actually, that's you, by the way, Jen. You and I talked about that yesterday. You treated somebody and they were worse. Well, so I have this little article, if you want me to send it to you, it's about a paragraph long, and it's called the Herxheimer effect. And basically it says, if you are the one that herxes, or if you're the one that gets sore or has a side effect of running frequencies, you're the one that needs it more. Okay, so it's an idea like going to the gym and releasing lactic acid, right? And tomorrow you're sore and you're getting all those rolling balls and everything to get that lactic acid out. Well, we are more cellular treatment than a lot of your tens and your muscle stems and stuff like that. We affect the cell in a different way, and we detoxify more. People are used to go to massage therapists. People are used to going to a chiropractor, and they get sore afterwards. Well, that's the same idea, but we actually do more so. And if you haven't been around this enough yet to find out that you can take a Lyme disease patient, by the way, don't treat them, all your frequencies are 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't treat a Lyme patient 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I treat them 1 minute, 1 minute, and 1 minute. 1, 1, 1. And I let those, because if I'm going to get somebody really sick really fast, it's going to be a Lyme patient and they're going to hurt over it. But if you take it easy, you don't have to turn it up high. We were talking about the 40% intensity. You don't have to turn it up to make it work, and you don't have to treat them as long. So I would tell you that once in a while, I've had somebody almost pass out and we laid them in the floor. Okay. I've also had people get so nauseated within the first 3 minutes that I hate this word but it's kind of the way we always say it. They're puking in the floor. They literally, that's what happens, is they can get sick really fast, don't think it can happen. And then it scares you because you're the one that gave the treatment. Don't get scared. It happens, but give them water. It fixes it. So I had a Houston rodeo and I was there for 21 days. And there was a guy that is a security guard. He's actually a sheriff. He's riding his bicycle for security all night long. And he comes in first thing in the morning, his back is killing him. He sits down and I put pads on his back. And I guarantee you in 3 minutes, he's white in the face. He's about to pass out. And we ran and got one of those $6 bottles of water that you buy at a rodeo. And we gave him water. And we never took him off the machine. But I have had many times to take somebody off the machine. So that doesn't sound very fun. And so we try not to create that reaction with people. So go easy on them, especially their first treatments. So Jen, are you still there? So if she's still there, I'm going to let her tell him because she actually had a patient do that this week. So we'll have her tell that when she must have walked away. So anyway, because you can detoxify real quickly. So take it easy. You don't have to go strong. So I put little pads in little places, maximum 40% initially. Then I take big pads, those are big carbon rubbers, and I put them in big places. Well, where's a big pad place? Your back, your traps, the middle of your back, under your feet, up your hamstrings, over your quads, maybe in your calves. And I put big pads in big places at maximum 50%. Well, your feet can kind of handle 50%, but sometimes your calves can't handle 50%. So go easy on it, because you remember, once this hits a low frequency, it's going to contract a muscle and they could be sore from it later on. I say big pads in big places, maximum 50%. So if you don't know where to start, this is a good place to start. It is not the magic. It is not going to hurt you if you go up higher intensity. But more importantly than anything is you don't have to turn this up to make it work. You have to get the right frequency. So there are 900 preset programs in this machine. You look up the S's for sciatica and treat the sciatic nerve. Look under the H's for headache and run headache programs. You can run all of these different things because of the preset programs. But then there's 100 empty spaces. I gave you guys the spiral notebook. In the back of that spiral notebook, there's about 70 programs that are not in there. By the way, since we were talking a while ago about Bell's palsy, that program you have to build into your own program because we don't use it as much. So you just put that into a slot and then you can run it and you can get rid of it like a file off of a computer when you don't need it. But then we can create our own frequencies, or you can create your own programs. And so if you want to create your own frequency, I'm going to turn my machine on right here. And if you want to create your own frequency, I'm going to try to see if I can show you this. There is down below the 7 is where you turn it on. The opposite side of that over here under the 9 is the HZ button. Okay, HZ meaning hertz. That HZ button, if you hit that, it's going to prompt you what to do. So I hit it and it says, what frequency do you want? Well, so I'm going to choose a frequency and I can just choose 160 hertz. You know, the guys have been around me enough. 160 hertz is an inflammation frequency. It's absolutely amazing to use anytime you want to. And I did it probably 5 times today, but I can put 160 and your programmer instructions are on your video, your email that I sent you for the videos, and it's one of the printouts. So if you have, hang on just a second, I'm getting a phone call, I'm trying to get rid of it. So if you want to program one frequency, you can, or you can build a program, and the program instructions are on the attachments to that. And it just says, push the code button, then push what slot you want, and then push the number, and then push select. It's going to walk you through every single aspect of programming. So when do we program? First of all, there's some in the back of the book that we can program into it. Those are always interchangeable, the first 100. But then I've got books and books of, and most of you have seen it. I probably ought to grab it here and show it to you again, and I will while y'all are talking. But there's lots of books out here that have frequencies for what we're going to do. I mean, if you want to add something else. So you guys, I'm going to look, hang on, I'm going to grab this, sorry. This is called Kathy Being Prepared. This is my favorite book, and it's called The Right Handbook of Frequency Therapy and Holistic Health. The first book I ever bought like this, I paid $350 for it. This is the later version, and I think I paid $150 or something about right for this one. But this was put out by Nina Silver. The reason I like her book, there's many, many more books, okay, besides hers. But the reason I like hers is because she has chapter 5 is all frequencies. But what she does in it is she has Hulda Clark's research, Carolyn McMakin's, Robert Becker's, all of the names, Royal Rife. She has all the names of those, all the other people's research besides just her own. So when she's back here talking about it in chapter 5 of listing what frequencies will go for, I don't know, liver cancer or something, then she will say, here's the frequencies for it. And this is what Robert Becker used. This is what Hulda Clark used. And so there's a variation of it. And so she kind of gives more than just one view of it. But the other thing that's really important, and I did this, so I'll tell you exactly what it was, is I treated a guy here 2 or 3 days ago for tinnitus, ringing in the ears. And so because ringing in the ears is really confusing to what causes that. I mean, it could be a gunshot and it never quit ringing. It could be viruses and funguses. It can be magnesium deficiency. It can be all kinds of stuff. Well, if I pull up this book, I don't have to be magic. I can read what she says about what we would do and why we would do it. So the first thing I always treat is I always treat Epstein-Barr. Epstein-Barr is your mono world and the viral type stuff. And I feel like if it's new, if you've had it for 20 years, maybe it's not. But if it's brand new, maybe you've just got a virus and that's showing up in your ears. So we do some other things. And this little book helps me decide that. So if you ever contact me or the person that sold you your machine and you say, well, what would we do? And I take a picture of it and send it to you. I just text you the picture of the frequencies and says, here's the frequencies and here's what the book says. And then you can take it, because what I don't like to do is I am not an expert. I have lots of experience. I've treated 28 to 30,000 people. I don't know however many, I quit counting at probably 27,000, but I've been involved in it a lot and I had a lot of experience, but my experience is not as good as somebody else's experience. I just got to work with Jennifer in Orlando, and she's also an acupuncturist. So she's got knowledge that I don't have. She's got meridians and understanding. And so there's a lot of different things that she could teach me. And I'm always in the learning mode. But what I know, I'm willing to share with you. But if I don't know, and so what I'm going to tell you is when I do it, when I find you something, I'm going to tell you where it came from. Because what I find in the frequency world is there's a lot of hocus pocus. Okay. And I don't want to be a hocus pocus person. There's people that make claims about everything in the world. If I'm telling you, I'm going to try to stick to it. If I have had experience with it, I want you to know where I got the experience. I'm going to tell you it came from one of my patients, and I'm going to tell you where it came from, anything I can get, but I'm also going to tell you where I found it in my book, because people do tend to elaborate so much that I don't know where it came from. And I had somebody do that recently. And what I found out is they were using a frequency that our machine was too low to put in the machine. So they moved it up to the next frequency. Well, that's like dialing the wrong radio station to me. I mean, if I want 101.5 and 101.8, I've got to have it set on that. And if it's sharp, if it's varied at all, it's not 101.5 anymore. And we want accuracy with this machine. I believe everything to do with frequencies is about accuracy. So I'm looking to get it as correct as I can. Now, one of the coolest parts about the Wellness Pro is all these preset programs. So what's in those programs and where did they come from? Well, first of all, there's research. Many of them came from books like this. And you will see, even in her book, she'll say, use this frequency and this frequency and this frequency. And they're very specific. And then sometimes she'll have a plus between them. And that means you're going to run one straight into the next one. You don't just pick and choose, but these two are going to be go straight from one frequency into another, and adding those two together makes it work better. So I like to stick with what we know. There's lots of research. There's lots of books. We can pull it from anywhere, but I'm not making it up. And I wanted you to know I'm not making it up, and I don't want you to make it up. Because I see people that jump off the deep end. Now, I love experimenting. Believe me, I'm the best experimenter with this that you can. So let's go put this program on it and let's try to do this with it and see what it does. And sometimes we get great results, but we're going to talk about that as experience. We're not going to talk about it as proof, you know? And so go try something, see if it works for you. Put a nerve program on something besides a nerve and see what happens. But here's what I'm going to mention about the preset programs. There's 900 of them. But as an example, if you put a back pain program in, say 667, if you guys haven't used 667, it's one of my favorites, then it's going to run frequencies that do different things. First of all, almost every program in this machine that's preset is going to have 465 hertz in it. 465 to me is going to be a candida frequency. So heck, why do you have a candida frequency treating a back pain? Because everybody has so much candida in their body. that their body's not acting right, right? Your microbiome is affected with every single thing we do. But 465 is what I call a virus frequency. I mean, a candida frequency. So in that though, the back pain program, it might run a frequency for scar tissues, for muscle spasms, for the nerve that's affected in the back, candida, but probably it's going to do something bacterial and parasitic as well. So the good thing about all these is you put the program in and you set it and trust the device. Now, do some of those frequencies not work on somebody? Probably, but there's enough of them there, it's probably going to make a difference. But we didn't have to figure that out, trust the process. So I used to always treat somebody with a certain, like that 427, you guys have heard that many times. It's a great inflammation program in your book, but people get used to it's all they've done. Well, heck, 408 is a much better program to put for somebody for their nerve disorder. But if you look at Carolyn McMakin's research, she said, always treat a nerve with inflammation also. So I'll run a nerve program, but I'll also run an inflammation program. So the main thing about that is we're here to help you with that. Now, this training is this much of what you can learn. You don't have to be an expert to run this machine. Put the pads in the place and run the program. That's it. It's magic because the frequencies are built into Precept program. But if you want to get involved in it, you can get way involved in this, and we can talk about specific frequencies. And there is a doctor, she's not on here, I don't think yet, but I'm going to give you this example, and this will be Jen's world. So I have a doctor that has had a tooth abscess, a big bad tooth abscess, and she's treated it with every kind of stuff, and she's expert, guys, at what she does. And so she got rid of the abscess, but guess where that meridian path went? To her breast. And she sent me a little printout of the tooth and showed, well, guess what? She ended up having a tumor, not a tumor, but a cyst on her breast, just like that. So it went from one place to another, and it travels these little pathways, these little nerve pathways, and you guys call them meridians. So just know that there are some things, and if you don't know, for you people that are on our Facebook page, that's a good place to ask a question. Everybody kind of don't have to talk all the time, but sometimes people are going to have an answer to some of the questions. Terry, are you listening on here? Terry Snap, are you paying attention? Maybe you are.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm here.
Terry. So Terry's one of these people that typed on the Facebook page. I'm sorry to call on you without notice. But Terry, talk a little about you, but also talk a little bit about your mom. I can tell it's loud behind you. Talk about your mom too, about eyes, what you guys have done with eyes.
Oh, okay. So she was running, I think since she's been about 8 years old, she's always had contacts or glasses. And so she started running 578 using the little pads on her cheeks, below her eyes there. And she says she ran that for, yes, right about in there. And so she did that for about 2 weeks, and she just turned 80 in July. She wears no glasses, no contacts, no reading glasses, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so I have contacts. I had 20/20 until I turned 45. And then all of a sudden I thought the light was not shining right. People's living rooms were dull or something. So now that I've been wearing contacts, but one's for far side, one's for near side. Yes, my right side was for distance, and my left side was for reading. Well, now then on the right side, I don't have to wear a contact anymore, and I can, my distance is fine. And I noticed it when I was driving, because I was still wearing my contacts, but it was kind of blurry, and I just couldn't see until the sign was right there. So I thought, well, this is weird. So I took the contacts out, and boom, I could see.
Yeah.
So my nearsighted is still not where I want it, where it's supposed to be. But I'm not giving up on it.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned there is because Terry, actually, I asked her to share that on that Facebook page. And because she's experienced that, she's going to know how to help you too. But by the way, her mom, I had the opportunity to work with her mom. She's an amazing mom. And she had worn, I think she told me she wore contact lenses before then for 49 years. I think that's what she said.
Right.
So don't think it still can't be better. And for her to buy this machine, I think she was one of the first ones to buy this new version of the Wellness Pro. And in 2 or 3 weeks, she's out of contacts. How cool is that? When she's worn them, she said it's those old hard kind, and she was wearing contact lenses. So just know, the reason I mentioned these kind of testimonies is this is a good place if you get on those and you need help, call out for somebody. You know, Jen may answer about some meridian or some place to do something that I don't even know. I tell her all the time she knows all that stuff, and I don't. So I created that.
Kathy, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Dinah.
So on that, for the iPads, it was 578. And what intensity, they should put it on 20?
Yeah, or below. So anytime it's on your face,
It
20%
was
or
on
below.
15.
Yeah, hers was 50.
It was on 15%. Yeah. My mom
Okay.
and my mom never used above 15%. Did the
Yeah.
same thing that she did.
Yeah, so
Okay.
15%. Now, there was an old machine and we hit microcurrent at 20. So now I will tell you, we hit microcurrent at 15% here. So usually 15 or lower on a face.
Okay.
By the
Thank
way, I have a doctor that does it a different way. He takes one of these like this and he massages on the outside of the eye like that. Now, you may, Terry, you may have to turn your sound off. Because I hear somebody's sound that maybe you did. Okay, so he actually, Dr. Ashby actually treats his mom, which has macular degeneration, with massaging 2 of these with gel on them right here. And then he goes like this. Okay, so you can play around with this. And if you do, just know that this is kind of instead of a pad. Okay, so you can do crazy things.
What are the size of pads that the other lady was using for the eyesight?
The little small pads, the little carbon rubber pads like this.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then what was the favorite code that you said that you had for Candida?
578. It's called nearsighted, farsighted in your book.
Oh no, yeah, that's nearsighted, farsighted. But what about the Candida one you said you liked?
Oh, the Candida is a frequency 465. It's going to be in almost all your programs. But if you want to run a Candida program, I think it's number 8 in the back of your book. You may have to program it in, although Renee, you bought one when you were with me. Yours is probably in there under code 8, I imagine. But you can look in the back of your book and look up Candida,
Okay.
and then you can run that and you'll see if it's the program. I think it's probably already pre-programmed in yours, just because you were with
Okay,
me when you bought the
thanks.
machine. So that's kind of a general overall question.
I was going to say, I programmed it in for my wife on mine just because I found it in the back of the book, and it was very simple and
Yeah.
runs for 65 minutes.
Yeah, that's a long program. So let's talk about long programs, because we got into that today with Bell's palsy and one of my doctors. So Bell's palsy is like 66 minutes or something, 63 minutes, something really long. Well, a doctor in an office doesn't always have a patient for 60 something minutes. And so do you know how to shorten a program? So in the back of your quick start guide, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which you turn the machine on and set it up and run it. The number 7th spot, if there was another number 7 in that list, it would be number 7. And you're going to put, so remember all your frequencies are running in your programs are running 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Set the program and it's changing frequencies every 3 minutes. But we can make it change every 1 minute if we want to, or every 2 minutes, or we can make it run every 60 minutes. So you can shorten or lengthen the program by putting the number of how many minutes you want each frequency to run before the word auto. So you'll say auto 427 start, and it's going to have 12 frequency changes, 3 minutes each. But if you put 1 before the auto, so you put 1 auto 427 start, that shortens it to 1 minute frequencies. So now you've got a 12-minute program, but each frequency is running. The magic of the machine is the frequency. You want them all. So rather than run it 12 minutes or 24 minutes and turn it off, then you're going to miss the last 1/3 of the whole program. Don't do that. Cut your time down. Now, do we want all the time? Yes. If you could have all of the time, I'd rather see you get the whole 66 minutes with Bell's palsy. But if you don't, get the frequencies, not the time. Questions about that? So you put the number of minutes you want each frequency to run before the word auto. Or you can just choose a frequency and run just one frequency by putting the Hertz button and choosing what frequency, and you can just run one frequency. Shortening or lengthening the program, I do a whole lot because I work a lot of trade shows and people don't have a lot of time. And so I'm wanting something to happen really fast. So I shorten the programs. But you guys that are working with athletes, not just athletes, people that have bad backs and knees, say for instance, if you're going to go walk at a flea market and you've got a bad knee and your knee's killing you and you're not going to get to go with the rest of the family, then do 1 minute frequencies of an arthritis program or 1 minute frequencies of an inflammation program or something. Shorten it, make it short and quick, and you'll go off like an energized bunny and you're going to feel better. It's going to give you good range of motion, bring some circulation in it. And when you come back, run the whole program. But it gives you a good pre-treatment. I do a lot of that with sports injuries. I pre-treat shoulders. I pre-treat hamstrings. Anybody that's pulled a groin pull or Achilles tendons and things like that, we pre-treat an injury before they had it. So I thought we might have one of our coaches on here that has a brand new machine. We've got 2 new schools in Texas that just bought new machines in the last month. And I taught them to pre-treat all their kids. One of them is 6-man football. And guess what? They need every kid on the field because they're short of people or they don't play at all. So you need to have pre-treatments, and they're all doing pre-treatments, and it's changing everything they do. Because if you've got a pulled groin, there's no need. You can send a kid out on the field and they're going to re-injure that groin the minute they go out there, or a knee or whatever. And so I pre-treat all my ropers or my swimmers or my pitchers. Anybody that's using their shoulders, I always pre-treat their shoulders. So just think about that also for your patients. If you don't have time to do the whole program, do a short one, give them great relief. That's what's really cool about this machine is you can get such instant relief for it. So I do a lot of shorter treatments and still get all the frequencies. And the magic is in getting the right frequencies. One other thing I want to say about that is I want to talk about when these pads come off the patient. For me, patients, you for customers, you yourself, your own people. When the pads come off is when the treatment begins. Keep that in mind. Now, when they stand up, they're going to say, oh my gosh, my knee's better, or my back's better, or whatever, and they should get some relief. But 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, they may be better than they are now. We are energizing the cell. So it should be better and better and better. But then if you can connect the dots to have multiple treatments in a day, or multiple treatments in the every day, as you can get it closer together, do multiple treatments, they'll do better and it'll begin to last longer and better and begin to last longer. Most of my people get some immediate, I would say at least 90% of the time, people feel better after even a 10 or 12 minute program. But that doesn't even hit the healing world yet. So go at it and have them treat it longer and longer. I mean, more and more and more, multiple times. Most of my people, if they're really injured or have a problem, I'll tell them to start at least 2 times a day for 3 or 4 days. Then go to every day for 3 or 4 days, and then every other day for 3 or 4 days. And then you can keep using it as long as you need to. We're never going to cure your arthritis, but we ought to make you better. And we're getting you off all the opiates. And we're doing some things that opiates wouldn't do. Questions about how long you treat them and how often you treat them?
Kathy?
Okay.
So there was, I ran the slip to disc on myself, the program. And I've been using it on a lot of my patients that have weak back. So in the Chinese acupuncture world, if somebody has a weak back when they're standing for a long time or an old injury, is when you're running that, it actually, I find it's nourishing everything. So I could be on my feet. Well, you know, at the show, I was like sore at the end of the day. So I could be on my feet for about like 12, 15 hours now, and it keeps it strong.
Yeah.
So I would use it Yeah, I would use it for program for anybody who feels weak, like a week back after a long day. That's typical.
Yeah. Also,
You were starting to ask me something before and I had to take a
oh, I
call.
was talking about, we were talking about Herxheimer's or negative effects after using it. You were just telling me you treated somebody this week that was worse. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so she had a back, she has, I think, like kind of like a drop foot, and her back has ankylosing
Spondylitis.
like retrograde.
Right.
And what I did is I ran the nerve program, and then I ran the second program for the disc, and she wound up, she's still exhausted. She was exhausted for a couple of days. It was harder to walk.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if I overtreated her.
So that's a good question. So you can overtreat, but it's not harmful to you. But overtreatment just looks like you worked out at the gym for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. I just reason it to something that you already know is that if you are not used to even going to the gym and suddenly you went for 2 or 3 hours, guess what you're going to feel like tomorrow, right? So take it easy at the beginning and shorten the programs maybe, but if you ever make somebody sore, I always tell them about detoxification, water. The other thing is one of the guys today showed up here at the office with, really, he was dehydrated before he got here. Well, let me tell you, the first experience I ever had, I was in Killeen, Texas, Mary Hardin Baylor. It's really not in Killeen, but it's fine. Mary Hardin Baylor, and they had probably 8 players that came in and got treatments, and they almost all were sick within the 2 or 3 minutes of the time I started treating them. Well, I thought, why did I treat somebody's knee and they pass out on me? Well, that's kind of crazy, right? What happened on them? Well, they've been out, it's August, 2 a day, hotter than hell days in Texas. And they were drinking Red Bull the whole time. And they are dehydrated. And what I did is I kept running it on this one. I remember specifically one guy, he's not a big guy, put pads on his feet and he almost passed out on me, and walked right over to the water faucet and got a little bitty bottle, a little bitty cup of water. And I gave it to him, walked back, got more, went back. And I just fed him water and fed him water and fed him water till he passed that. But the truth is his problem was he was dehydrated. Well, what's the number one thing you ever see with dehydration? Headaches. He had a headache. And so that's another thing for me. But remember, water fixes it all. And I just kept feeding him water till he was better. But I have seen people really get so nauseated I have to take them off and they go to the toilet and throw up. But usually that's from detoxification, dehydration. The reason I mention it so many times is because people haven't seen it, and then one day they see it. Like, what happened? How come I made this person so sore or so sick or so nauseated? So just go easy on them, but make sure if you're ever working with people, at least the first 2 or 3 times, get them well hydrated. The older you get, the thinner your skin is, and you're going to lose more fluid through your skin. So a 16-year-old doesn't get as dehydrated as me, okay? Because I'm getting older, my skin is thinner, and I'm going to lose more fluids on a hot day in August. So remember the hydration. A couple of other things I want to mention is we talked about the intensity to use it, how often we're going to use it. We've talked about some pad placement. We're not going to get into it until you ask some questions, because I'm going to turn you over to questions in just a second. I want you to know that you can split the screen and run 2 different people. You can split the screen and run 1 person. I don't usually do that. I have that question come up all the time. I am a real purist with frequencies. So think about this. If you take a rock and you throw it in a pond, you take a rock and you throw it in a pond over here, you've got 2 waveforms and they're going to eventually intermix together. Then you have a third one. Now in microcurrent, which there's the videos and stuff online, you can watch microcurrent, and we'll do another of these where we'll talk specifically about microcurrent. And when you're ready, you can go do it. Look at the ones that are on the Facebook page already. There's Zoom calls on microcurrent already there. But the idea is I usually don't mix the frequencies in one person's body. So I'm not running a knee program at the same time I'm treating their headache, because somewhere those are different frequencies at the same time. I'm a real purist. So I don't usually take the A side and the B side and do two different programs and treat one person. I usually use that for two different people. In the sports world, we're running two people on each side. So we're running 4 kids at a time sometime, but we're still keeping up with, we're treating 2 shoulders or 2 knees, or we're treating 2 things that might be inflamed. But I'm not going to take somebody that has a headache and go treat their knee pain at the same time. Ideas? Any questions about that? Now, it's not to say they can't get some results from it, but the idea is to try to keep it separate because we want those pure frequencies.
So Kathy, if you're running the 2 screens at the same time, that's basically what the Wellness Pro electromagnetic said for the inferential
Yep.
Inferential.
Yeah, you can consider it like interferential. If you take a frequency off the A's and you have a frequency off the B and you mix them together, it does become a form of interferential. So people that want to talk, we're not truly inferential, but it's that theory behind it. Now, when we switch to microcurrent and we talk about Carolyn McMakin's study, she does mix the 2 frequencies in those people, and we'll cover that later on. But you run the A side and the B side with 2 different frequencies and you put it in the same knee or et cetera, or back. And she considers it the location of the injury, which would be in this instance, your knee. And then she might treat the condition that is of the knee. So we might treat the inflammation off of one frequency, the knee off of another, and we mix those together and treat an inflammation of the knee. And they're 2 different frequencies, but we're putting it inside the knee. That's the theory of what Carolyn McMakin does on the microcurrent, the blue screen of this machine. You'll see some recordings of it. I'm just going to throw this in right now. Mentioning microcurrent is Carolyn McMakin is amazing. Her research is amazing. She's got books out that are amazing. But long before there was a Carolyn McMakin, there was microcurrent. And people have been using microcurrent for a long time, and hers is not the only theory. So just remember that people know her now because she's now generation, but people back early, I don't know, 40s were using some form of microcurrent, and that microcurrent was not to mix 2 different frequencies. By the way, Dr. Kondrot with a K-O-N-D-R-O-T, you may have seen some information at the bottom of your printouts about Kondrot's frequencies. He's a doctor, he trained under Carolyn McMakin. And so yes, so this is recorded, so it'll be on the Facebook page. So he trained under Carolyn McMakin, and he still uses 1 frequency for eyes. And he's an eye disorder person. So his research is all about eyes. So anything you want to go to, you can go to Kondrot's website, but I put the primary frequencies he uses on a printout on the Facebook, not the Facebook page, but the training videos. So if you ever need it and you can't find it, go back to your original training videos and it might have Kondrot stuff on there. If not, I'll send me a text and I'll send it to you. But Kondrot does all eyes. Well, he trained with Carolyn McMakin, but he's not mixing an A side and a B side together. But you can. And I have people that do that. So just from the microcurrent world, you can run a regular preset code from what you have on your machine, and you can run it on the blue screen with microcurrent, and it still should work. There is a debate about how high the frequency can go with microcurrent. So Carolyn McMakin only goes as high as 1,000 hertz. You know that our machine goes to 10,000 hertz. You don't have to know all this stuff now until you get ready to use it. But if you go back to what Terry was talking about earlier, is they're just turning the machine down. They're using the gold screen and turning the intensity down to 15, and that hits microcurrent. Okay, so it's another theory of how you get to microcurrent. In the old days, we had the old machines and we didn't have the blue screen, and we just turned the machine down and we ran it at a lower intensity and it hits microcurrent. We can do special things now with the blue screen, and so there's some magic in using the blue screen. So that's all I'm going to really say about microcurrent. We can cover that later. I want to say one more thing about it. When do we use microcurrent? So microcurrent has a more cellular capacity for healing. So most of the time, People don't like microcurrent because you should feel nothing. Okay, now when you have it on the gold screen and you turn it down, you still may feel it. But when you switch to that blue screen, it should be subsensory. If you feel it, it's too high, you should be turning it down. You should not feel the microcurrent. Okay. So if you're running microcurrent, the reason people don't like it is because they don't feel it. And they think if it's not, you don't feel it, it's not working. Well, we talked earlier about things that you can't feel. One of them is a high frequency. So our machine goes to 10,000 hertz. 10,000 hertz is vibrating so fast, it's like a dog whistle. Really, really fast. And so just think of a dog whistle. The dog can hear it, but you can't hear it. It's vibrating too fast. But if you turn it down to 0.1 hertz, which is in your machine, your program might change to a very low frequency, that frequency at down 0.1 hertz is like a bass drum, the boom. And you feel it in the walls, you feel it under your feet, you feel it in the boom box going next to you in the car next to you. So it's considered cycles per second. And at 0.1, it's 0.1 cycles per second. So to give you a reference, an A on a piano is 440 cycles per second. It vibrates 440 times each second. And if it's sharp or flat, it's not 440 anymore. It might be 441 or 439, but the frequency changed and it's no longer an A. We want it to be an A, you better get the right frequency for an A. And so that resonance effect hits a cell that is damaged, and that changes the polarity of that cell, the voltage of the cell. By the way, if you ever want another good book, I hadn't mentioned this, but I've always talked to you about Hulda Clark's book, you know, anyway, Hulda Clark's book, go look at them. What are they? I can't think of them all. But there's one that I had not read, I hadn't finished ever, and it is Tennant. If you guys know Tennant, Tennant's been around for a long time. He is a doctor, still, he's in the Dallas area. His story is amazing. I believe he's an ophthalmologist, but he's amazing, and he's got a book that's called Healing Voltage about this thick. I'm currently back to reading it. I like to read these things. But anyway, Tennant's got a good book, but you know, there is a great book by Carolyn McMakin. There's several of them. But one of them is called The Resonant Effect. If you haven't read that, that's a good book to read. Anybody help me on some of these other names of books? The very basics of Hulda Clark, I can't think, but look on her website. And The Cure of All Diseases, that's one of them. And there's also one, The Cure of Cancer, and that's on her website as well. But there's a bunch of other, and it talks about frequencies. It talks about why they work, what's happening inside the cell. And by the way, those are not all voltage. So when Tennant's talking about voltage, we're not using much voltage. We barely got any voltage. We're a perfect tuning fork, or we're more a harmonic frequency. We're not using high voltage. Your typical muscle stimulator, your typical TENS device is using high voltage. Okay, now voltage, there's high voltage equipment, and don't think they don't work, but it's not doing exactly what we do. They also use something we call a spiked waveform. So ours machine is a square biphasic waveform. I just want you to hear those terms because somebody's going to ask you about them. But square biphasics looks like a sawtooth. I mean, it looks like a square. It goes over, comes down, and goes up and over and comes down, and it's square on the top of these waveforms. You can actually see that on your Wellness Pro. When it shows a waveform on it, it's got little teeny tiny squares. If you have a TENS or a muscle stimulator, those are spiked waveforms. That's not what we're doing. The spiked waveform is going to have a little bite or sting to it, and it also is like a sawtooth, is what it looks like. It's going to spike. And then you have sine waves. You will see some equipment that has like a flowing wave. Those are all different waveforms. Now, that's not so important for you, but what's important is one of these days you're going to come across somebody that says, what's the waveform? And you say, oh, let's go get my owner's manual and pull that out, and I can tell you exactly. Because the importance of this machine is that square biphasic waveform and the pause rates between those phases. And they're different from other pieces of equipment. So that they're, to me, they're part of the magic, is why this machine works like it does, is the square biphasic waveform and the pause rates between them. And so there's a little magic that happens. The company calls something deep pulse technology. That makes it go inside instead of superficial on the top of your skin. So you will see me talking about my pacemaker patients. Well, most of the time, you're not going to put a TENS machine or even an e-stim unit on a pacemaker patient. I don't do it now either, unless I get a doctor's permission, but I have about 22 of them right now using it. But the reason is we're not using high voltage. Okay. So just know there's books out there, there's resources out there, there's information out there. If you like this stuff and you've never paid attention, go get some of those books and you're about to be fascinated, because they will change your whole theory of medicine. You're going to move away from typical medicine world and start using frequencies. So I'm going to mention one other thing about that. So I can't tell you exactly when. I wish I'd looked this up before I got on this call, but I have an article that talks about before there were medical schools, okay, before we had official medical schools, all the treatment came from frequencies, our herbs and things like that. But people treated with frequencies all the time. That's what they treated. They didn't go get a pill. They didn't all just do surgeries. They treated with frequencies first. And so we go back to those days with it, and that frequency world has been very effective for a long time. But one day I came across an article that said, when did that change? And again, I can't tell you, but there is a man that started the whole theory that maybe we're going to, instead of let people choose, we used to send people to medical school because they just wanted to go. You didn't have to go to a university and get a high grade and pass your whatever MCAT. You could just go to medical school. It's kind of like going to secretarial school. You just signed up and went. Well, then there was this guy that came around, and if you ever need this for anything, I'll look up the article, but it gives his name. And he says, you know what? Maybe we ought to make this more official, and maybe we ought to qualify people before they can become doctors. Well, have you ever thought about going to medical school? Well, no, you'd have to go back to college nowadays, instead of just saying, well, maybe I just want to go. Maybe I want to learn more for myself. We used to, you could do that. And so it ended up happening then is this one guy comes up and he says, I think we should certify everybody. And now they have to go to college and get a degree and pass these tests before you go to medical school. At that time, when that changed, is when we went to all the we quit running frequencies and we went to medicine. We went to drugs and chemicals and other things. That was when that all changed. And I thought that was very interesting. They give you the date that it happened and all that kind of stuff. There was a time that a choice was made to not do this as much anymore and go to typical nowadays allopathic world. It's not that allopathic isn't good. I come from that world. I believe in it. I think surgeries are great, until I saw a guy today that couldn't walk because he had a spinal fusion. And then I wondered whether it was good, and he's wishing he would never have had his back fixed. But it's still good. And I still believe in medicines. I still believe in antibiotics. I still believe in all of it. But why do that first when you could try frequencies first? So just I tell I hope nobody's in here that's age, but I'm just not making fun of somebody, but I'll say I have an old age, an 80-year-old person in my office, and I say, when you're 85, you can go live in a doctor's office forever, or you can be on flat of your back, whatever you want to do, or you can take pain pills full time if you want to. But why do that first? Why don't you try some frequency world and go see what you do? And what if you're 50% improved? You may not have to be 100% improved. What if you're just 50 or 60 or 80% improved? Better is nothing. Is better than nothing, right? If you get 50%, it's better than nothing. So go try it and stay at it. Don't just keep doing, don't just use it 2 or 3 days and quit. Oh, it didn't work, or I'm worse because of it. So I had a lady that was a Lyme patient. I trained her on the phone. She used it and she had to stop the first treatment and go throw up. And you know how hard it was? She had never met me before. She just bought a $3,500 machine, and she's getting her training for the first time, and I'm treating her for the first time. We were going to do a 12-minute program. And I had her in the first 2 or 3 minutes throwing up. And she's going, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't for me. Well, I remember she's from the Shreveport area. Her husband's a preacher. And they have parishioners that were in an automobile accident. And she has, in 3 years, she hasn't been able to go anywhere with her husband, anywhere he goes. Her Lyme disease wears her out. And so the first treatment, I have her sick and she's going, well, maybe this isn't for me. And I said, please, please, please don't give up on it. In 6 weeks, it had changed her life. And she was in the car driving 3 hours with her husband to go see these people. And then she went to Kohl's and went shopping afterwards. It changed her life. It didn't change it in one day, but it took her a few weeks at it, but it changed her life. And because she stuck with it. But let me tell you, she did not like me the first day and she thought she'd wasted $3,500. So just keep at it, be diligent, pay attention to it. I am not an all or nothing person. You want to show people if you can, try to use the goal screen and demonstrate with people on it that they can get some relief. But when they tell you, oh my gosh, the next day I hurt worse, or I'm back to where I was, say, please do this again. You know, don't just say this is a one time. How many times do you take a pain pill and it just worked one time? How many times do you take an antibiotic and it worked just one time, right? So you're going to take antibiotics 10 days. That's what they're going to assign you for, unless you maybe Cipro and you get 3 or something. But you're also going to go to physical therapy. Physical therapy is an amazing thing for you, but you don't just show up one time for it. They're not even going to let you sign up for one time. You wasted your money to show up there for one time. So I was always angry when the Obamacare changed a bunch of the physical therapy plans. I had people with rheumatoid arthritis and they used to go 3 times a week. And then suddenly their insurance paid for them to go once a month. And we're going, how good is that? I mean, who wants to do physical therapy once a month? It's like going to the gym once a month. But don't use your Wellness Pro once a month. Now you can, if you're injured and you pull a hamstring, get on that thing, but also pay attention to it. It resonates and resonates and resonates that you want to keep this vibrating as long as you can, and you'll do better and it will last longer. So now I'm stopping and I'm going to go to questions because most of you have some questions and I want you to get those done before we quit. Specifics, guys.
I have a question, Kathy.
Okay.
My husband had open heart surgery and he has wires on his chest.
Yeah.
Is it okay to use it with him?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So you people that have been around me, if you've ever seen my booth, I tell you, when you see that picture, I want you to remember it because it is a girl that's 35 years old with 26 pins in her elbow. And she treated herself 3 times a day. Well, a pin is like a wire. It does change some things. The only thing I tell you on somebody that has had open heart surgery or anything, I would treat them myself if it was my family, but you got to go back to your cardiologist to say, is that something I can do? The biggest problem with that is they don't know what you're doing. So you got to explain it. If I can ever help you do that, then do so. But I will take a machine right into a hospital and treat a patient. But if I do that, I'm respectful of the place that they are because the doctor has a choice of what they do with their patients. I am going to respect an allopathic doctor as much as I do a naturopathic doctor. So I will say, is this okay? And usually I'll explain it a little bit and they say, oh yeah, absolutely. And just explain to them that you are using resonance type frequencies, you're vibrating, you're not high voltage, and they're usually all over it. But I do want to throw that in is because I run into people that, you know, don't want you doing something with their patients, whether it's exercise, even going to physical therapy until they say you can. Other questions?
Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Recently had an issue wound up with a torn MCL. And I've been running program 514 for ligaments, tendons,
Okay.
and on the microvolt thing. Where's a good start on that as far as intensity on that?
So
What
you're
would you
using
recommend
the gold screen, right? Or you're using the blue screen?
Blue screen.
Okay, so I want you to go back also and use some of the gold screen. Okay, so don't think that it's one or the other. In my office, many times I'll want to run a program on the gold and then I'll switch it to a blue. The reason is there is some healing ability in that gold, but there's also a whole lot of pain relief. And then by the way, I had a patient today that has a Wellness Pro and he tells me a crazy story about he has Lyme disease, or he did have Lyme disease. He may still have, but I'm not his doctor. But he told me this, and this is getting off the subject, but I want to make a point with it. He said that the person that sold him his Wellness Pro was treating parasites with microcurrent. But when he blew his nose, the had worms come out. Now that's crazy, huh? It's kind of awful. And so he talked to the doctor, and she says, bring them in and let's look at them under a microscope. And he said they were parasites. But I have been told that parasitic type things are better with the gold screen. You relieve parasites, but don't think you can't, because it is a difference of how your voltage is in your own body. So and many times, if I'm not getting results on the gold screen, I'll switch to the blue screen, but I'm using starting with the gold. When I go to intensity on gold, I'm using a little pad in a little place, and I'm usually at your knee. I might maximum be 50%, maybe even 40. But remember, you don't have to turn it up more to make it work. You just have to get the right frequency. So I say this like the radio station, 101.5 is 101.5. Turning the volume up does not make it change anything but 101.5. So you want the frequency more than you want that intensity. But sometimes we want to yell at it. We want to yell loud, then we're going to feel it more. But if on microcurrent, we're not yelling loud, we're whispering. So you can turn it down, turn it up, but the frequency is more important than any of it. But when you switch it to the blue screen, it is more cellular. We're increasing protein synthesis a little better. But by the way, there's a lot of the healing that happens in that gold screen. Don't miss it. Okay. It's an amazing part of the machine. Most of the time when I'm demonstrating and I'm on the gold screen, because people like to feel it and they like to know something's going on. But go back and forth between your screens with some of your same programs. I would also treat that knee with inflammation type stuff. So we want to heal it. We want to pull any swelling out of it. So swelling, there's swellings under the S's in your book for swelling programs. And then I want to vary just a little bit, since I'm mentioning it, is there's the word edema. So people say, what's the difference between swelling and edema? Well, to me, nothing, except it's a word. But I really consider edema more of a swelling that comes from another problem. Like, for instance, if you have kidney problems, right? Your feet can swell, or your other parts of your body can swell. Or say, for instance, you have congestive heart failure, then you may have swelling in other parts of your body. I consider that edema. A sports injury to me is swelling, and your knee's probably in that category, is you've injured something and it can be swelling. But don't hesitate to throw in there an edema program. You're going to see a lot of the frequencies kind of be the same. And then you might even run something on the nerve, because if it travels anywhere, it's a nerve. So you might run some. So vary what you're doing and do some different things. Don't get hung up on doing the same thing all the time. You might run some arthritis stuff. You're old enough to get a little arthritis in that joint too. So pulling the swelling out. Anytime, think of heat and ice. You physical therapists know this better than I do. But your heat and the ice, what do? We want to pull some of the swelling out first, and then you're going to heal faster. I always tell people, if you got a bunch of swelling up there, you get the swelling out and you're going to heal better. So instead of using your heat and ice theory, I'm going to put frequencies on you, and you'll usually do just as good. In fact, a lot of people are not doing heat and ice anymore. So does that help you, Ben?
It does. And I have been running both programs. I guess my question was, when I run the blue screen, what intensity is a good way to, how high should you turn that? Is it,
so try.
I run the same program to say.
Yeah, so try if you can to go back to the videos that we talked. But what you're going to do is you're going to start the program. You're going to push through plus, 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 and then you're going to turn it to 100% intensity.
Okay, 100%. I've been, okay, very good. I've run it to 100.
Okay.
How far should I run on the 200 on the microphone?
On your knee?
Run up,
So I think probably you're a male and you probably have a bigger size knee. I imagine you can do 150 or 200. You're never going to hurt anything. Here's what ends up happening is somewhere when you get a great big person, we usually use a bigger number. So you might go a 300-pound person at 400 microcurrents, UAs. But what ends up happening is sometimes the frequency of the milliamps gets so much more than the person's side that you decrease ATP and you also decrease protein synthesis. We don't want it to go the other way, but you're safe in the round until you get about 500. I just tell people don't ever go above 500 microamps. That's your UA. We're kind of hitting in that microcurrent. And by the way, Sylvia, yes, you can schedule an appointment with me specifically if that was you that said that. So, but anyway, other questions? Not microcurrent related, because we'll get into that, or also go watch the whole microcurrent on the Facebook page if you can. Paula, you contacted me this week and you're going to ask some questions. You got some of those?
Well,
Are they-
I could ask a question about everything we've said, said tonight. First of all, while we're just talking about the intensity, whatever, you talked about you don't need to go over 40%, but I've got family members feel the buzzing and feel the muscle contractions. And they said it doesn't make them sore. Is there any benefit for doing that? I mean, they just like it kind of like a massage, and they do it before they go to bed.
They can do that. They can do that. Usually I will tell you there's a good chance they will make them sore though. But there's not any harm in turning it up. But there's no reason to turn it up if you don't want to. But yeah, if you want to run this thing 100%, but sometimes we do want to turn it back down because it does change that cellular activity a little bit. So don't always max it out. The other thing is I find that people that run it at a full intensity all the time and they want as much muscle contractions as they get, then their muscle memory gets where it's not as effective anymore. The good thing about this machine is it really is effective because it changes all these frequencies all the time, and our body doesn't become immune to that frequency. But when you start just turning it up and turning it up, we just turn it up and your body just gets used to it being turned up. And then when you turn down, you don't get the effectiveness. So vary something. Turn it up, turn it down, change something, because otherwise we don't want to just keep doing the same thing and your body becoming immune to it.
Kathy,
Yes.
you just, what you said just reminded me of something. So I think of the Wellness Pro with the different frequencies is
Yes.
akin to the energy when I'm doing acupuncture. And generally the person, when they're very depleted, we would do like not that many needles, it would be more of a gentler program, lighter, less needles. And if they're more robust or excess inflammation, then we could do more. So when I find people very depleted, tired, dehydrated, a longer program or more intensity it's going to collapse.
Yeah.
The person, that's what I've seen happen.
I have seen people that tend to run it high all the time tire out. They just get where they feel chronically fatigued all the time. So it doesn't hurt to do that some, but if you're sitting around doing this all the time, do something different, because even change programs or whatever you're doing. But I do believe that it can eventually tire you out and you're going to feel chronically fatigued.
Kathy,
Yes.
I had one statement and one question. My husband likes to feel the current. I guess like the other lady, it's like a massage. I would have it up really high and he's still not feeling it.
Yeah.
He's hydrated. He drinks water all the time. So I started him on magnesium supplements.
Right.
And after the very first time, just the first capsule, he could feel it, like just that fast. He could feel it.
So I'm gonna address that. So Jennifer was working with me in Orlando, and we had a doctor that we treated 2 or 3 times, and I've seen this. So I'm going to tell you first of all about my experience with it is exactly what you're saying, and then I'm going to tell you about this doctor because Jennifer was there with me. So and she was actually doing the treatment, and so she got to see it firsthand. But so I was at some horse event or something, and I'm demonstrating to a lady from Venezuela. She's tall, picture of health, thin, looks like she's just healthy. And she was the first person. By then I had treated, I promise you, probably 25,000 people. I had never seen this happen before. And I put pads on her back. I put pads under her feet. I put cylinders in her hand, and she never felt it anywhere. Well, then I'm going, wait, no, that's crazy. What happened? And so her husband was there. We put it on him, same program. We took it off of her, moved her straight over there, same pads, same intensity, same machine, everything. I put it on me. It worked perfect. but her, it didn't. So then it becomes curious of why not. That same show, I sold the machine to a horse chiropractor. And he calls me about 2 weeks later and he says, have you ever, he said, I've worked on the horse. The horse did great with it, but I put this on this man and he never feels this machine. And I said, yes, I just saw my first one. And we discussed that. So he does a lot of muscle testing. And I have a lot of respect for this guy. And he muscle tested him and he said the man was totally deficient in magnesium. So what did he give him? Kelp. And he gave it to him for 2 days. And the man felt it at 10% intensity. And it's exactly your story, Terry. So Jennifer and I were in Orlando and we were treating a doctor. Jennifer did it first. And she thought she was doing something wrong because she thinks she's learning and she did perfect. But she said, Kathy, come over here. This guy doesn't feel this machine anywhere. So I played with everything I could. I just turned it up. I'd try one place, get another place, and he just really never felt it. By the way, he ended up buying a machine. So that's how much faith he had in it. But he never felt it. So I had this really big name doctor. I mean, a big name, and not that he's one doctor is more than the other, but he has a lot of experience in frequencies. Well, he just happened into where I was, and he owns one of the machines. And I said, and I know he did muscle testing, and I don't do muscle testing. And I said, I would love for you to muscle test this guy. So I kind of stepped away. I didn't want to be an influence in anything. And he muscle tested him. He said he believed he was deficient in potassium. Well, remember, those are positive and negative charges on your periodic table, right? Those are little pluses, calcium, magnesium, potassiums, and all those things. Those are energy, but they're voltage. Well, then basically, you are not voltage. You just don't have electrolytes in your body. And so I always say, I cannot put them in there, and you're deficient. So be energetically strong. And so what he did, this doctor left for the night and they went over to maybe Standard Process or somewhere and got there was vitamins everywhere because it's a trade show and they're selling every kind and color there. And he came back and he had treated himself 2 times. And when he came back, he felt it. Now, he still didn't feel it as much as I wanted him to, but he was on the recovery and he knew the difference himself. So that's a great point, Terry, is that's one of the times when your deficiency, I mean, you're what's wrong. It's not the machine. So give yourself some vitamin supplements and be good with them.
Kathy?
Yes.
I was just thinking is, there's sodium potassium gates for like ion exchange. He had a lot of swelling and that infection could have upset his potassium.
Right. So that's kind of an interesting. And then I had forgotten that he had a week before had been stung by a stingray and his foot was bad. I mean, it was infected and it was terrible. And so, by the way, when he bought it, Jennifer, the first thing we started to do is treating that infection. I didn't care about whether he felt it or not. We wanted to be all over the infection. And he started, and I kind of kept up with him a little bit, but I haven't since then. So I haven't heard from him. I don't know how he's doing. But in the meantime, there is no doubt that something happened. And his could be toxins, by the way, because he was really toxined up from that stingray sting. Other questions?
Kathy, remind me.
Yes.
Yeah. Remind me what your show and tell code is when you're just showing people how it works.
For you, it's going to be in your number 4 slot. Not everybody has that in there, but most of you probably do here because you probably got machines probably straight from me. Yeah, in number 4, it's my demo program. It shows you that in the bottom of your quick start guide. I put it. Some of you that had it a long time, it used to be in number 5, but it's pretty much in number 4 now. Now, Terry, you were going to ask a question too, Terry. You had a statement. Now tell me your question.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I wanted to know, so distant vision is fine now, but my nearsighted is still not. So I was gonna try the cylinders and rub it on the face like you had shown us. Should that just be on the gold screen or can I microcurrent that? I've never microcurrent with my eyes.
Yeah, so turn that to microcurrent. And what you're going to do though, is you're going to go up to plus. Let me see where it starts. Let's see up here. And you'd run 7 or 578 and start, here, auto 578 and start it. And then it starts at 10 microamps. It goes 10, 15, and 25. I'd either run it on 10 microamps or 15 microamps. I couldn't remember if it's 15 or 20. So you're going to
Okay.
turn it on and you're going to plus, plus, plus up on your little plus and minus signs, and you can go to 10 or 15 microamps. And then you're just going to do the same
Okay,
thing.
and I can use this. I'm sorry, and I can use the cylinders and rub
That's
it on
right.
my eyes. And
Yeah.
would I still do it on both eyes?
Yes. Both
Each
eyes.
side?
Or you could
Okay.
go if you've
Okay.
got one, but yeah, I may as well treat both eyes for sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Uh-huh. Other questions?
Another question, I missed the other gentleman's question as far as your show and tell code or something. I'm unfamiliar with that. And the other question is, are these recordings available back on your website?
Yeah, they will be
Again, are
back. It may not be tonight, but it will be tomorrow. It takes it a while on my computer. I've got slow internet where I am, and it sometimes takes it a while to convert it. But yes, I will put it back on my Facebook page, and I can send those to you privately as well. But the reason I put it on Facebook is because it's a private group and it's just our people. And so when we start talking about some of the off-label uses of it, I don't share those with everybody across the country, because remember that this is FDA cleared for pain, accelerated healing, wound therapy, but it's not approved for all the parasites and stuff that we're talking about. So I just, if you understand this is a time I can mention this, because this is something you can talk to people about, is I always use this example. Think of an aspirin. An aspirin was cleared or approved for pain, arthritis pain, headache pain, pains all kinds, right? Plain old aspirin. But the number one use of an aspirin today is considered off-label, and that's a blood thinner. So we have a machine that's approved for the pain, and then we have a lot of off-label uses. And when we talk to people, I can talk to them all day long. But when I start putting things out for publication, then it puts the risk for the FDA to follow electromedical technologies, because then they say we're making claims to cure whatever, Parkinson's or whatever, right? Well, by the way, Parkinson's is in that for the clearance because it's also considered a pain. That wasn't a good example, but allergies, say for instance, we do amazing for allergies. Guys use it for allergies, but that's what we call an off-label use. Well, there's lots of things that are off-label that are as good as, like an aspirin. The blood thinner effect of an aspirin is every bit as important as what it was originally cleared for pain. So that's the way I look at this machine. So yes, the answer to that is that it is going to be on the Facebook page. And then I also have them. You can, by the way, you can copy those. If you kind of right click on something and you can save it right onto whatever you're passing, you can pass it to yourself or whatever. And so you don't have to be on Facebook to actually use it. I just use that to post it. There are people that are not on Facebook. I hate Facebook, guys. It's not my thing, but it's still an avenue that's real easy to get to for most people. I do Telegram. I don't put this on Telegram. It's just easier to use. And that's how I found that. But if people are not using it on Facebook and they want to do something else, feel free that if you have got them into a Wellness Pro, to share that with them somewhere else, or if they contact me, I try to share it with them too. It's not the only source, it's just a good, easy source. The reason though I use it is because it lets us all interact together. And otherwise we'll sit here on a Zoom call for 10 days at a time. But it gives you an avenue to contact Terry and say, now how'd you say treat those eyes again? Or Melanie just left, she's a doctor, but she treats horses a lot too, because her son's a big competitor. And so she's had a cool COVID story. I wish she would ask her before she left. But anyway, ask her about it. You know, that's a good time. If you need an answer, you can always contact me, but sometimes it's better coming from the source that did it.
Kathy, very good. In fact, Melanie is the person that
That you got your
she
spell.
has been a long time, for the last 15, 20 years. So know
Oh,
her
good
well.
for you. She's an amazing person. So I didn't get to say that when she showed up here briefly, but you just got your machine, didn't you?
Correct, correct.
Good for you. You're going to love it. It's going to be the best investment you ever made.
But it has shown real improvement. I had a horse wreck myself. wound up with 5 broken ribs, broken left ankle, a lung contusion, and her rail torn. So it's been, yeah, I can see the improvement very quick too.
That's good. Run the fracture programs, okay? Fracture programs for
ma'am.
anything bone relates really good. Helps rebuild that bone.
Fracture program, I'll have to look that one up. I've been using the one for broken bones. That's one.
Yeah. There's also under the F's for fractures. And so Dwayne, you just asked, am I going to have a training session? Well, I keep telling you yes and no and yes and no, because I don't know is the answer. But I still want to, but it seems like a lot of people, now that we're doing some Zoom calls, it's really fun to get together in person. And let's see who all's here that has been, maybe not a single person on here that's been to them, but I've had as many as 100 people in a full training session. And I've done that for 9 years. I missed last year. No, I didn't miss year. We did a 2-day show last year in January. So the people came in and they spent the night and we worked 2 days. We should have had 3 days. It was that much. I still want to have that. But what we're finding is a lot of people are still not wanting to travel. My people don't really care very much. All the Texas people certainly don't care. And probably you, Terry. It's still kind of a deal that if I go to the trouble of it, I want people to show up. And when I have 2 people, so I kind of spin the word out, but I am still looking at it. It may not be this year. It may be into January, but I do still want to have one. I'm just trying to look at the timing. So many things, New York totally shut down, 100% shut down. Everybody now has to be vaccinated to go into a restaurant. You're having to show your card. And the same thing with the hotels there. And then after what just happened today in California, that's going to happen there too. So a lot of people all of you guys are from different parts of the country. And I'd like to have it when everybody could travel and come. And it seems to me that we're shutting more and more down. And I guess I'm trying to see when that right time is. But in the meantime, you can always reach me. I want to be available, and Zoom calls are not my favorite, but because I like to show you how things. In fact, the people that come to my two-day shows, we make them practice on each other. It's kind of fun to get a partner and they make them put pads on each other, make them talk to each other about it, make them practice on each other. It's a great way to get to learn it. And even if you're not ever going to show anybody else, it's a great experience to put it on somebody else. And then you're sure what you're doing. And then you run into the questions. It's just a fun thing to do. People like coming to it. So it's worth your time. Other questions?
On those fracture, I'm sorry, on the fracture codes that you were talking to him about with code 41, help with the DNA, RNA?
Yeah, so DNA repair is, if I were to tell you there's 2 programs in the whole thing that I would run all the time, other than wellness, general wellness is a great one to do.
Mm-hmm.
DNA repair is an amazing program. If you guys are believers and you go back to the Bible, I had somebody tell me where that is 528 hertz is the primary frequency. That actually came from scripture and give you to another time and period to go into it. But somebody actually set me down and told me about that. But DNA repair, if you think about everything that could be damaged, first of all your skin cancers are DNA damage from the sun or from something. But a lot of different injury, a lot of different problems, diseases and stuff, we believe is DNA related. And so there's no reason not to. It's a great program. Put it in and use DNA a lot. The other thing I would say is I have a lady that helped me learn about the machine. And she said, if something isn't happening and you're not getting results, always treat it for staph infection. And there's a long program in the back for staph. Okay, because there's lots of staph stuff that has happened. And you want to, you carry staph, whether you know you do or not. Many of you, if you've had it, you've never gotten rid of it totally. So staph infection, I learned that by a lady at the Professional Bull Riders PBR, and she got 0 effects by me treating her hand arthritis. And she should have gotten results. And when I went back, I eventually treated her for staph infection and got results on her hands. Because I remember this lady said, if it doesn't work, go back to staph, go back to staph. Well, it's in your hands, so it's traveling through the upper part of your body or anywhere in your body, really. And so that's a kind of a go-to. Those are just tips from a lot of years of experience. So if you don't know what to do, try something different. and you may be surprised at what it will do.
Kathy, what is the general wellness program? I think I saw that. Had a whole
General
bunch of
wellness,
codes.
I think it's called Wellness General or something. I don't have my book in front of me. But here's the thing is, so there are some channels in this. This is another whole long discussion. But if you push, let's see, I haven't done this in a while. If you just push select to start off with. So if you push the word select before you start on your machine, it says select a single code. Well, in your back of your owner's manual, not your spiral notebook, but your owner's manual, it has a list. It says between 1 and 250. There are 250 individual programs in the back of that book. And you can run all of those programs. And you put them in and you run number 1, number 2, number 3. And if you look at them, they have frequencies assigned to them. And that's individual single codes. But then there's also something that's called a channel. And gosh, this is, y'all are checking me on this one. Let me see how I do this. Maybe I have to practice this. You have to go back to your owner's manual because I haven't done this in a long time. But there's channels, and the channels are running, and there's channels listed back there too. And you can run one channel after another after another. And I have some doctors that have run all of the channels, and they run every frequency in this machine. And it takes them about 2 days because they're running at 3 minutes each, and they run every channel, and which includes every frequency in the machine. And they do it about twice a year for general wellness. It's just a preventative, go treat everything there is. If you need more about that, I wish I'd practiced that a little bit. It's been a long time since I put a channel in there. But it's some number you start.
Oh, I had it. I just had something in my auto code that had, it's called General Wealth, and it had several codes. I was like, what? I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah. So General Wellness is a program you can run. It's a shorter program. I was talking about some of the channels. You can run all of the channels and you get all the frequencies in the whole machine. And when you do that, you basically do wellness. Remember, this machine's called a Wellness Pro. The idea is treat you before you get sick. Okay, not many of us do that. We wait till we have a bad knee or a shoulder or something, we treat it. But the idea is pre-treat it where you won't have that problem. So run as many of those channels as you can and get all the frequencies you can. And I would put cylinders in the hands and pads under the feet when I do it. I'd like to put pads on your body and not just broadcasting. Don't forget to use those pads on your body. Unless you've got a quick question, we're going to end it. We're at 2 hours. I know, first of all, it takes a long time to listen to it. And nobody will ever listen to it again when it gets too long. But second of all, it's people don't want to do this all night. I hope you enjoy it enough that you'll do it again. But in the meantime, remember, we do a whole lot of other things besides this. You can ask a question on the Facebook page. You can find out who they are, and you can personally message these people. And the good thing about it is they're people that have our machines and they know what they're talking about. Some of them used them a lot. Somebody has never used it. And use that as an opportunity to get to know people as well. And then you can share experiences. And that to me is the connection of we're going to have a group effort here. So anything else, guys? So you'll see this go on the Facebook page tomorrow. If you can't get on it, let me know. And then we can send it to you privately. But thank you for coming. Ask questions, send me emails, contact the person that sold it to you. They've got lots of answers. Y'all stay safe.
Thank you,
No,
Kathy.
I appreciate all of you. You'll use your
Thank you.
Wellness Pro and share it. Okay. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.